And you can let your heels tap. And you can do it as fast as you want. Like if you're somebody who really needs a lot of stimulation, this is really good because you can shake your legs, you can vibrate your heel bones, and you can get your arms into it, you know, your fingers, you know, your head and your neck. And vibration, you know, in our cells, there are receptors. And there's 4 different types of receptors, but I'm not going to tell you what they all are. And one of them is for vibration. And with vibration, when we don't have movement in an area of the body, we don't feel those cells that sense vibration don't work, and they don't send messages to the brain about the position of the joint in space. So when we're really tense somewhere, we're not getting vibration. So we're not getting a good pathway from the body to the brain, so the brain can tell the body what to do. So often what the body does is it just shuts things down and holds it tight because it doesn't know where it's going. So tension in the body to me is about the body not knowing where it's going. All right, so start to bring this to a close, just slowly. And then just stand, close your eyes if you can, or feel comfortable doing that. And just notice how that vibratory experience has changed your sense of self. Good. Okay, so you can either sit on the floor or sit on a chair. I'm going to start with what I call a foot massage. And I'm going to sit on a stool, and I'm going to come close to you. Okay, I'm going to give you, I do not have really good feet, and so I work on them. It maintains function that I have rather than going down that slippery slope that keeps on, I keep losing it. So take your right foot, cross your right foot over your left knee, and take your left hand and interlace your fingers between your toes. This may be strong medicine to begin with, so it's not so easy. So you interlace your fingers through your toes and just wiggle your fingers in between the toes. And I know at first, like, you know, a lot of us, oh, it's painful, so I don't do it, or it's painful and I stop, or it's painful. And I have a story about that. So see if you can make this, be a little curious about the tissue tension between your toes. And let your fingers kind of wiggle in between the webbing of the toes. You might only be able to do it a little bit today. So I've started doing this thing where I'm getting in the ocean every day, for as long as I can keep my breath controlled. It's cold. And so I know this morning I went in for 20 breaths. When I first did, I had about 3 breaths. I could do it. So this foot exercise is like that. It's like, at first it's like, oh my God, what's she making me do here? I don't ever want to do this. But over time, this tissue starts to become more adaptable. There starts to be less noise when you put your fingers there. And you'll start to notice that things start to happen in that foot as a result of it. So, and then squeeze your fingers with your toes and squeeze your toes with your fingers. So you'll go squeeze your fingers with your toes and squeeze your toes with your fingers and go back and forth. And see if you can, that's a brain exercise of being able to squeeze one and then squeeze the other. You know, it's like changing your focus. I can change my focus to my toe squeezing. I can change my focus to my hand squeezing, and just notice. And now grasp the front of your foot like you're shaking somebody's hand, and take your other hand and wrap it around your heel bone. And then you're going to twist your forefoot and your heel bone in opposite directions, like you're twisting water out of a wet towel. Now, try to see if you're doing this really, because some people think, oh, I'm going to do this really strongly. It's going to be better if I do it with a lot of force. These are very small joints, and small joints don't need to move that far. So we don't need to use so much force. We can be a little bit more subtle and see if we can sense the movement in the foot. See if we can sense a little bit of movement in this arch area of the foot. So you twist back and forth. And then you're going to pull the forefoot away from the heel bone. So you're lengthening the fabric on the sole of your foot. And if you look at your foot before you do it, you'll see there are horizontal creases. And then pulling it apart, you'll see that maybe the creases become more vertical. And then let it go. And then pull it. So you're really affecting your plantar fascia here, which is, everybody's heard about their plantar fascia if they've had plantar fasciitis, and then let it go. And then pull it and let it go. Good. Take your fingers out. Place your feet on the floor. And just look down and notice your right foot compared to your left. And we're going to do one side and then the other. So I'd like you to take your hand towel or dish towel, and you're going to put it on the floor. Hopefully, if you're on a piece of carpet, or this is going to be difficult, this is better on a smooth floor. If you happen to do this exercise on a, like a carpeted floor, you might want to put like a garbage bag underneath so that you've got some slide of that towel. Now you're going to take your toes and you're going to curl them, and you're going to pull the towel underneath your arch. You're going to try and pleat that towel underneath your arch. So what we're doing is we're strengthening the long toe flexors here. And pull it towards. And the other thing I'd like you to notice is, can you keep a nice bend in that foot that you're working on, your right foot? And then push the towel away with the toes. And then pull it back in. Now this is something that's really good exercise to do every day. It starts to wake up the foot, because we live in shoes, which are, in my mind, sensory deprivation devices. And to get the proprioception, which is these receptors in the foot, working again, we need to use it. And being in a shoe does not do that necessarily. All right, and then push away. Okay. And then come and stand on both of your feet again in parallel. Oops. Yeah, I need a camera person. And sense, if it's comfortable for you to do it, close your eyes and sense your right foot. Sense your right ankle. Sense your right leg. And maybe the whole side of your the right side of your body. Now gently transfer your weight onto your right leg and think about pressing down through your foot as you lift your left leg up off the ground. Oops, teacher's wobbly. And see if your balance is a little bit better. Okay, put that foot back down. Okay, so now let's do the other foot. So we'll sit down, cross your left foot over your right knee, and take your fingers and interlace them between your toes. So we do this exercise a lot in class, and we repeat certain things a lot because I think they're important, and I repeat them so that people will learn how to do them for themselves. So if you're sitting watching, I don't advocate sort of doing exercises and watching TV, but this is a good one that you could do if you're sitting in front of the TV or the computer. So again, notice the space between your toes. Sense the, what's the tissue like here? Is it tighter on this foot? Is it looser on this foot? Just have a notice as you wiggle your fingers in there. And then squeeze your toes with your fingers, and then squeeze your fingers with your toes. And alternate going back and forth between those two, because this is a brain skill, being able to go back and forth between a reference of your toes and then the reference of your fingers. Back and forth. And then grip the sole of your foot with your hand like you're shaking someone's hand. Take a hold of your heel bone, wrap your other hand around your heel bone, and twist your foot in opposite directions. So the forefoot twists in an opposite direction to the heel. And you don't want to do, especially for people who are really mobile, which I'm of that, although I have very stiff feet. More movement is not better. In fact, more movement for some people is destabilizing. So you want to become intelligent about what your body needs in terms of movement. All right, and then come just back to the foot being in a centered position. So center is always where we begin and end. And then you're going to pull the heel bone away from the forefoot and sort of lengthen the foot. And again, if you look at the fabric of the skin on the sole of the foot, you'll notice before you lengthen it, there's horizontal creases. And then as you extend it, you'll maybe see vertical creases or not. And then just go between lengthening and shortening. Lengthening and shortening. And the bones are the handles, and by pulling on the bones, we affect the soft tissue around the muscles, veins, all kinds of things, lymphatic tissue, nerve tissue. All right, and let go. Place your foot on the floor. And just notice your foot compared to the other one. Place your towel on the floor. Place your foot on the towel. You can see, yeah. And you want to be standing in a little bit of a split stance here with your knees bent slightly, softly. So there's a little bit of a bend in the ankle, a little bit of bend in the knee, a little bit of a bend in the hip joint. Now you're going to curl, you're going to pull the tips of your toes and pull the towel under your arch, folding it up, having an origami lesson here with your foot. And you're going to pull that towel underneath your foot. And it's also good to do this without looking at it to see if you can actually sense. A lot of times when we don't sense things well, we have to look at them. But being able to do stuff like this without looking is also a way of, it's another form of complexity of this exercise. And then push the towel away with the toes. And then pull it back. Squeeze in and then push it away. Push it away. And when you push it away, lengthen your toes out and spread them. So you want to be able to spread and lengthen the toes. You want to be able to curl them and use them like a claw almost. Okay. And then let that go. And come back and stand on your feet. And if you can, allow yourself to close your eyes. You know, this is like a checking in. It's a process of self-discovery. It's doing all the things you didn't have time to do when you were, younger. And then open your eyes and transfer your weight over to your left leg. And think of pressing down through that left foot as you lift the right leg. And then put it back down. And then come back to center and sense both feet on the ground. And then bring your arms by your sides, and we're going to do what's called an arm arc and an arm circle. So standing with your feet parallel, have a feeling that you can spread the sole of the foot. You can spread your toes and lengthen your toes. Find the 2 points, where the little toe meets the foot. So the knuckle of the little toe, and where the big toe meets the foot, the big toe knuckle. And press those 2 points into the floor. Now find the heel bone, the center of your heel bone, press that down into the floor. So you have this idea of a foot tripod. So you have these 3 points that you can press down through in your feet. Lift your pubic bone slightly. So this is going to think of your tailbone coming towards your pubic bone, and then your pubic bone gently lifting, so that engages your pelvic floor and your abdominals slightly. And then the arms are going to arc up and forward, and then out to the sides and down. And then they arc up forward, palms are parallel going up, and then they face the floor coming down. And arm arc forward, reach out to those little fingers, and then reach out through the collarbone as the arms come down by your sides. And one more time, up and then down. Good. Now let's do you're going to arm arc up and then bring your arms out into a T position. So make sure they're not back here, because this is actually not stabilized in the shoulder joint. You want them slightly in front, just ever so slightly in front, but reaching out. And we're going to do a knee bounce. So a bounce twice and then up, and then bounce twice and then up, and then bounce twice and up, and bounce twice and up, bounce twice and up, and then bounce twice, come up, let your arms come down by your sides. And then your arms arc up. You're going to stay in your arm arc, and you're going to come up on your toes. Lift your heels. Press down through those toe joints. And then you're going to arm circle down and lower your heels to the floor. Take a breath. On the exhalation, the arms arc up. You come up on your toes. Press down through those toes. Lift your heels. And then arms circle down and slowly lower down. Let's do another knee bounce. So arms into the T position and bounce, and then extend. Bounce, double bounce, and extend. And you want to exhale on the double bounce. So inhale up, exhale down, inhale up, exhale down, inhale up, exhale down, and then bring your arms down by your sides. And sense, just check in, see, what's going on inside. Left arm goes up and over into a side bend. And then keep your spine in the side bend, but let your arm come down like a domino. And when you start to feel a pull through the side of your neck, come back to center. Other arm. Right arm comes up and over into that side bend. Again, don't bring your arm back by your ear. Have it slightly reaching out on an angle. Press down through the outside of the right foot so you get a stretch from the side of the foot right up to the ear. And then stay in that side bend. Let the arm domino down and pull you back through the neck. Arm arc up, arm circle down, arm arc up, and then you're going to come into an arm pendulum. The arms fall down and you do a double bounce and then come back up. And then the arms cross in the opposite way, double bounce and come back up. And then double bounce and come back up. And double bounce and come back up. And then the arms float down by your sides. And just pause and close your eyes. Sense inside. Sense the contact of your feet on the floor. And now you're going to turn your feet so that you're lifting the inner edge of the foot and pressing down into the outer edge of the foot. I feel that can be quite a strong sensation. Keep a little bend in the knee. And then pour your foot, the sole of the foot, back on the floor. And intentionally spread and lift the toes. And then let each toe come back down to the floor like snowflakes falling on the ground. And then take your attention, weight now on the inside edge of the foot. So you're going to lift the outer edge of the foot. And press down through that big toe ball joint. And then spread the foot back on the floor. Lengthen and spread the toes. And then let the toes fall down to the floor like snowflakes on the ground. And then arm arc up, come up on your toes, lift your heels. And then arms circle down, lower your heels towards the floor. Arm arc up, come up on your toes, lift your heels. Arms circle down, lower your heels towards the ground. Good. And then left arm comes up and over, and you're going to step your left foot behind your right, cross your legs, squeeze your thighs together. Feel like you're a tube of toothpaste here. Lift your pelvic floor, engage your abdominals, and reach up and over. And then the arm comes down, the leg comes back to a centered position. Let's do an arm arc up, arms into T position, and a double bounce. And then back up, and then a double bounce, and then back up, and then a double bounce, and up, and a double bounce, and let the arms come down by your sides. Right arm comes up and over as right leg steps behind. Squeeze the thighs, lift the pelvic floor, reach. So reach up through the right arm, reach down through the left arm, reach through the crown of your head, and lift your abdominals. So this is a different standing on one leg kind of exercise. All right, let the arm come down, let the foot stand back, come back into a parallel stance. Arm arc up, arm circle down. Arm arc up, pendulum arms. And then we need this bouncing, we need the elasticity in our tissue. And then float the arms back up. And then stand up on your toes. And then let your arms slowly come down and slowly lower your heels to the floor. Now we're going to do a roll down. So from your chin, you're going to let your chin come towards the front of your throat. You're going to let your spine slowly, like a slinky, coming down over the stairs, roll down, engage your pelvic floor, lift your abdominals. You don't have to come down far. We just want to go to the place where we're getting a stretch through our lumbar or lower back. Strongly engage your pelvic floor by lifting it up. Lift your pubic bone towards your sternum. And then lift your pubic bone up to roll yourself back up to center. Let's do a knee bounce, and then up. Knee bounce, and up. Knee bounce, and up. Knee bounce, and up. Good. Let's do another roll down. So think of lengthening through your spine to begin. Chin comes towards the front of the throat. Start to let your breastbone soften and roll down. Keeping you don't want to do this from the hip joint. You're not folding at the hips. We're keeping the pelvis straight up and down. And then engage the pelvic floor. Lift the pubic bone and roll your spine back up. All right, so arm arc up, arm circle down. Arm arc up, and arm circle down. Good. So now I'd like you to step out into a wider position. Your legs are turned out. This is a second position. What I want you to make sure is that your knees are tracking out over your second, between your, either your second toe or between your second and first toe. And then you're going to arm arc up. And as you come into a T position with the arms, you're going to come down into a second position. And then come back up, arm arc up. And then as the arms come down, you reach your knees out away from one another and pull your heel bones towards one another. And then come back up. So we're starting to work into the hip joint. And then come down into that second position. Think of reaching the knees out, but pulling the heels together and lifting the pelvic floor and pubic bone. And then come back up. And let's do a double bounce this time. Bounce, and then up, and then bounce, and then up. Keep those 3 points of the foot on the floor, and bounce, and up, and bounce, and up. Good. Arms come down by your side. Step back into a small V position with your feet. Not a big V position, but a small V position. And just sense that. Sense how that affects your balance. And then arm arc up. And then you're going to step out into a second position and bring your arms to a T position. And then double bounce. And then step back into that V position. Bring your arms back overhead. Good. And then your arms come into a T position. You step over into a second position. And then step back. And again. So you think this has something to do with balance? Yes, it does. And a slight engagement of the pelvic floor is a good thing here, and lifting that pubic bone, coming back. All right, let your arms come down by your sides. Good. So bring your feet back to parallel, and you're going to roll down through your spine again, only to where you can keep your pelvis centered, and you're getting that nice stretch to the lower back, lifting the abdominals, pelvic floor. And then lift the pubic bone, roll up through the spine, vertebra by vertebra. Arm arc up, arm circle down. Arm arc up, arm circle down. Arm arc up, arm circle down. Okay, come back into that V position because we have the other side to do. Arm arc up and step to the other side, come into that double bounce. And then step back, and then step into that double bounce, and come back, and lift the pelvic floor and the pubic bone, and come back, and then double bounce, and come back. Good. And then come back to parallel, bring your arms down by your sides. Good work, really good work, everybody. All right, so now Oh, I want to do some rotation. Okay, so one of the exercises, one of the reasons we don't have very good balance, again, is that our rib cages sort of get stuck in kind of a side bend and a rotation. So a lot of the work we do a lot of side bending, we do a lot of rotation to try and break up these habitual patterns, which are in our nervous system as well as in our tissue, so in our muscles and our fascia. So one of the rotational exercises I really like a lot is this one. So just watch. I'm going to stand with and we do this sitting as well, arms in front of me. And then I reach forward through my left arm here, my left shoulder blade. I bend my left elbow and pull it back like I'm pulling the bow of a bow and arrow. Then I extend my right elbow, and then I swoop my arm back forward. So this is what it looks like on this side. So my right arm goes forward, shoulder blade goes forward. My left elbow pulls back, my sternum turns with it, and then I extend that arm and then circle it forward. You want to give it a go? All right, so both arms out in front of you. Left arm reaches forward, shoulder blade goes forward. Right elbow pulls back like you're pulling a bow back. And then extend that elbow and then circle that arm forward. Let me put a little bit of momentum in there. Oh, good. Okay, so forward with the right shoulder blade, right arm, pull back through the left, then extend that elbow and circle it forward. Good. And then arm arc up, arm circle down. Great. Okay, let's do one more of those. So arms straight out in front of you. Reach forward with the left arm, left shoulder blade, pull back through the right elbow, extend the elbow and reach forward. And then reach forward with the right shoulder blade and arm, pull back through the left, extend the arm, and then circle it forward. Good. And then arm arc up and arm circle down. Wonderful. All right, that was quite a workout, especially when I'm talking and trying to teach. All right, so now what I'd like to do is I'd like to come down to the floor, but I want to show you what we're going to do. Those of you who haven't done this before, you're going to need a towel rolled up. Those of you who've done this before, you need your massage balls that we use in class. So for those of you who are just joining us, these are soft massage balls that we use for a lot of the techniques in the exercises. But without those, you're going to need probably something like a towel rolled up and maybe a towel folded for underneath the back of your head. A lot of us have a forward head position at a certain point in life, and lying down on your back can be very problematic with that because you end up creating more tension in your system. Okay, so if you haven't done this before, you might want to look, and if you have done it before, you might also want to watch, and then you might see something that's, oh, I didn't get that before. So there's always layers to this movement. So first I'm going to let my bones settle down into the floor. Sense the weight of the back of my head, sense the weight of my rib cage, my pelvis, the soles of my feet. And one of the foundational exercises that we do in every class is called leg float. And we do it in a bunch of different positions because what leg float does is it teaches you stability, not strength, stability of the spine, so that when you move your legs, your spine doesn't move all over the place and shear. So I'm going to press down through my left big toe, and I'm going to float my right leg up to tabletop. So I want to show you a couple of ways that this can happen. This is one way I see a lot where people do that. They actually lift from their knee first and then a little bit of hip joint. That's not what we're after. We're after lifting from this hip joint. So right from the muscles deep inside of the pelvis that run along the spine. So that's that movement. And can I do that movement while keeping my rib cage softly hugging the ground, the pelvis heavy on the ground, and lift that up with as little muscular effort in my abdominals as possible. Now, at first, you might need to use more muscular effort so the pelvis doesn't wiggle and wobble or the rib cage doesn't get pulled along. But eventually, you do it with as little as necessary and as that you need to use. So that's our first exercise. And so let's try that. So if you lie down on your back, spread the back of your pelvis on the floor. So you want to notice, is the top of your pelvis on the floor? Is the bottom where your sit bones are on the floor? And notice if both sides of the pelvis are equally on the floor. And then you can take your hands and put them around your pelvis and you kind of wiggle your spine out of your pelvis and get it, reclaim another 2 inches of your height. I've lost about ½ an inch of my height. But I'm, this kind of lengthening your spine and strengthening your spine in a lengthened position has benefits of not letting that happen as quickly as it wants to. And then think of the back of your head gently pressing down into the ground. Think of your pelvic floor, the 2 sit bones coming a little bit towards one another, like there's a gentle elastic band between them. And then think there's another elastic band between your tailbone and your pubic bone, that there's those 2 points of the pelvic floor are coming together. And then press down through your left big toe to stabilize the left side of your body and float your right leg up to tabletop. And a soft point of the foot is good because it stabilizes the lower leg. And then float that leg down, and let's try the other side. So press down through the right big toe, a little bit of pelvic floor engagement, a little bit of the pubic bone connecting towards the breastbone, and float the left leg up to tabletop. How quiet can you keep your pelvis? At first, it's really hard to even know if you're quiet or not, but over time, you'll get a sense of it because we're restoring this ability for the body to sense itself, which we've lost. Okay. Now, if you have the towel or your massage balls, roll up that towel, press down into your feet, lift your pelvis, put the pelvis up on top of the towel or your balls, whichever. And then have a sense that your pelvis is like a bowl, that you're pouring the water down towards the floor, down into the pool of your rib cage. So you don't want an arch in your back, you want more of a hammocky, lengthened feeling through the back, long through the back of the neck, maybe even think about a little bit of a tuck through the chin. Press down through the left big toe, engage the pelvic floor, and float the right leg up to tabletop. And just go up and down a few times. If you place your hands on your pelvis, you'll see if you can keep it still. It's not rigid, it's just still. A lot of us have confused rigidity with stability. It's not. And lift it up and put it back down. Good. So just let everything go. Take a breath, breathe into the diaphragm. That's another, we're having a breath workshop tomorrow night. It's a free workshop, 6 o'clock tomorrow night, that will go into a lot of the, how the breath helps you engage your core optimally as they work together. So press down through the right big toe, engage the pelvic floor. Again, lift that pubic bones ever so slightly and float your left leg up to tabletop. Point that foot. And then engage. So now you're going to engage the pelvic floor and abdominals slightly so that you keep the pelvis from following the leg as it lowers down. And again, lift up. And then lower down. Good, all right. And then just take a little break here. Take a few breaths in, let go of any tension that you may have created anywhere in your body doing that exercise. And exercise should be pleasurable and pleasant and make you feel good about living in your body. If it doesn't, I don't think it's worth doing. All right. So now we're going to do tabletop legs. So this is going to be more of a core strength exercise. And you're going to need to engage more of the abdominals here. So pelvic floor engages, a little bit of more abdominal tissue. Hug those back ribs into the floor as you float your right leg up to tabletop. So the knee and the knee joint is at 90 degrees, the hip joint is at 90 degrees. Now, a little bit more engagement here, pelvic floor abdominals, float the left leg up to meet it. So you're in a tabletop position with your legs. If your legs were on the top of a stool, this is how it would look. And notice how you have to use more muscular strength here. You might even be shaking a bit. Now engage your pelvic floor and float your left leg down. Then lift it back up. Woo. And then float it back down. And then lift it up. And then float your right leg down. A little bit more abdominals here, Heather. And then lift back up. Float it down, engage those abdominals, and then lift it back up. Good. And then bring your two knees together and squeeze your knees together. Activate your inner thigh. Pelvic floor, you can engage your pelvic floor as you squeeze your thighs together. And then keeping your heels together, open your knees into this position, diamond position. And then bring your knees back towards one another, press them into one another, engage the pelvic floor. So you're squeezing the sit bones together, squeezing the tailbone to the pubic bone. And then let it open as you open your knees. And then bring them back together. Bring the legs back to parallel. Float the left leg down, float the right leg down. And then press down into your feet. Lift your pelvis, take the towel out and roll down onto your spine. The next exercise we're going to do is called bridge pose. I have a bit of a different rendition of bridge than perhaps you've learned. So, you're free to do your version, but my version is about getting more engagement of the back of the inner thigh, a muscle called the adductor magnus, which is really important for balance. And remember, that's a theme in this module is balance. So I want to engage the muscles that are important for balance, for stability. So coming into a bridge, I'm going to think of a pelvic curl. So I'm going to draw my tailbone to my pubic bone, then my pubic bone towards my breastbone, and just come into a position where my pelvis is in a little bit more of a tucked position, but I'm not doing that by squeezing my bum muscles, okay? So come out of it, put your hands on your gluteals or your derriere, and see if you can get that tucked position without from the inside. So we're working on the muscles on the inside of the pelvis, not squeezing with the big surface muscles here. So take a breath in, and on the exhale, think of drawing the tailbone to the pubic bone, then the pubic bone to the sternum, and drawing your pelvic floor up so that you can just come to the bottom of the ribs, and then roll back down through your lower back. Again, take a breath in, and a breath out. And just let everything soften down into the floor. Take a breath in, press down through your big toes. Engage your pelvic floor, tailbone to pubic bone curls towards the breastbone. As you reach your sit bones out through your knees to roll yourself up onto your shoulder blades. Now it is the back inner thigh that is doing the work here, not the back muscles and not the glute muscles. It's the back inner thigh. Press down through the big toe and lift that back inner thigh up towards the ceiling between the legs. And hold that. And then soften down through your breastbone as you roll down through your spine onto the back of your pelvis. And let it all go. And then again, you're going to press down through your big toe. Engage your pelvic floor. Let your tailbone curl towards your pubic bone. Pubic bone curls towards the breastbone. And you roll up vertebra by vertebra, reaching your sit bones out through your knees, reaching the knees long, coming up onto your shoulder blades. Now lift your hip joint in the front of your pelvis up towards the ceiling from the back of the leg. And then keep the pelvis high and start to soften down through the rib cage, through the breastbone, through the spine, until you come all the way down. Good. Hug your knees towards your chest. And then rock from side to side, kind of giving yourself a massage on your lower back. Bring your feet to the floor. And if this is a comfortable position for you, to just take a few moments to rest, do that. If you'd like to extend your legs, if that's happy on your lower back, you can do that. And just allow yourself to kind of settle into the back of the body, into the floor underneath you, into the sense of the weight of your bones, the heel bones, the lower leg bones, the big thigh bones, heavy, sinking down through the flesh of the thigh. Sense the weight of the pelvis, and then start to travel up through the center of your torso along your spine till you get to the rib cage. And sense the movement of the rib cage with your breath, softening, moving from the inside out. Bring your awareness to your shoulder blades and your arm bones, upper arm bones, lower arm bones, bones of the hand and fingers. And then sense your breastbone and travel up your breastbone to your collarbones, out to the tips of the shoulder blades. And then back to the breastbone, and then come to the base of your neck and travel up the front of your neck to the base of the skull. Sense the weight of the skull on the floor. Let your eyes drop back into your skull. Let your lower jaw soften away from the upper jaw. Let you have softness around your ears. And take a few breaths to just let all this information